Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to MindMineTV and MindMine Podcast. We appreciate you being here today. If you're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/MindMineTV on this awesome, beautiful, at least in SoCal, beautiful Saturday afternoon. We're looking at about, 1 p.m. PDT here. I don't know why I went New York on that one, and that wasn't even that good. But it's okay, I'll accept it. I'm hyped. You know, we've been off for a week. We actually had, I had a production that I was opening up for in LA. We were doing a play, actually, A Midsummer Night's Dream, with the Archway Theater Company. And so with that, between the rehearsals and the tech and the memorization lines and blocking and make sure that was all down, we were like, let's just take a break this week. I got a lot going on top of the fact that we are implementing a new schedule, right?
New schedule, hi.
That's right. We're trying our best to make sure that we are available for everyone as best as we can, right? I mean, we can only do so much. But we are trying our best to maximize the amount of time and what we can give to everyone on Twitch, on Podbean, on, iTunes, Google Play, you name it, wherever you're at, joining us on YouTube. You know, we want to try to give you as much as possible. So we do have the new schedule, which is starting next week, down below in the info panels if you're watching us on Twitch. But if you're not, you listen to us via podcast, just so you know, specifically for the talk show, instead of one podcast, we're going to be actually delivering 2 podcasts. So with this, we'll actually be doing Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 2 p.m. So that way now you're getting 2 live streams, 2 podcasts, and 2 videos on YouTube just for the talk show itself. So that's twice a week. And then from there, we're adding on Wednesdays for game streams and, newer times. That way we have more time, more days to devote to all of you. And so that is what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be implementing as of next week. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free. If you're in our Discord, let us know. Otherwise, you can catch us in the socials on Instagram and Twitter, which is at MindMineTV FOMO. And how's it going, everyone in chat today? Drew the Ogre 13 and Schmerter, how you doing? Welcome and thank you for chatting today and for joining us.
And we have got some interesting topics that we're going to be talking about today. And I do want to just put out the disclaimer that there might be some sensitive type of topics that we're going to be discussing. So spoiler alert, in case you maybe don't want to chit chat about it, you know, feel free to just listen in on in. We'd love to have you in the audience, but definitely feel free to join us in the conversation, because I really think it's important things that everyone should be talking about, because after all, there are 4 harsh truths about life that will make you a better person. And I think at the end of the day, we all want to be better people, whatever that might mean to us.
Unless you're born perfect. Which then props to you. You're like the 0.000000000000001%.
Oh, so you're saying they are perfect people out there?
I mean, I'm saying that there could be a minute variability depending on the person's reality. What they perceive as perfect, you know?
I see. I mean, I know cats. Cats probably think that they're pretty much perfect.
That's true. I mean, our cats especially, we have 2 of them, and yeah, they are perfect no matter what. And of course, yesterday was Black Cat Appreciation Day, and we do have a black cat, so she was more than perfect. She was queen for the day.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, now that she usually isn't anyway, but still, especially on that day.
Extra queen.
And you can actually see an image of her on our Twitters if you join us there at MindMineTV. We post up a pic of her looking very regal and all of her queenliness, I guess.
She even has a little bit of a little necklace of fur that's in front that's like sort of like a little bit off-white. That's how regal she is. She even wears the jewelry, y'all.
That's right. She's got the royal family jewels right there. Well, that sounds weird, but you know what I mean.
And hello, Kiki Slider. Welcome. All right, so this article I came across is actually written by Eric Barker. It was on BusinessInsider.com, and it's a lot about what we tend to talk about on our show here at MindMineTV. It kind of summed up very nicely a lot of the things that I think we've been touching upon. Certainly when we were talking about the 35 questions that you probably never asked yourself, and kudos if you did. Check out that series. That was about 7 episodes in the making. And I figured this would be a great way to really get our audience re-engaged to talking about something that's very relevant to all of our lives, I think.
Absolutely. And again, this is to make you a better person. So some of these topics, as Tatiana mentioned, will be items that are somewhat sensitive. Some people might take offense to it. There's no offense to it. It's just, it is what it is. That, these are facts that are proven, and thus here we are. So it's up to us to face them, right? And then do something great with them.
Indeed. And the image, for those of you that are watching on YouTube or on Twitch right now, the image that I have up is actually a beautiful painting by Judy Mackey called Moment of Contemplation.
I already feel very contemplative right now.
Right,
on this
zen.
Lovely image.
Very zen, as it were. So there's no doubt about it, right? Like, life is challenging, but living in denial and refusing to accept unpleasant circumstances can really impact our happiness. There are certain realities that we should acknowledge about life. Realities that we can't always fix, quote unquote, right? Or ignore. But recognizing these truths about life can actually make us better and happier. Sort of once you get over the fact that truth hurts, as they say, you'll actually be better equipped to start dealing with it, right? It's like, okay, there's a problem here. How do I get to a solution? And issues aren't actually that scary anymore once you know that there are solutions. And maybe you don't really like all the solutions, but knowing that there is a way around something is better than just thinking, oh my goodness, I can't get over this at the end.
Or even to alleviate the pressure, knowing that this thing exists, depending on the topics. Again, where I'm looking at harsh truth number 1 here, which will elaborate on further here in just a moment. But just for that simple fact, a lot of times, though, there's nothing you can do about it, but to be able to face those facts and know how to move forward with that knowledge is also very important, too.
Yeah, and when you can design a roadmap of sorts, and know that you'll come out stronger on the other side. So harsh truth number 1. You're gonna die.
That's not a threat, folks. That is not a threat.
We're all gonna die, right? Like, we know at some point, we may not know when or how, it's gonna happen, right? Human lifespan is limited, right? It's no secret. It'll happen to all of us. But we most likely act like there's always gonna be another day, another year, and then we wonder, shit, where'd the time go? Because thinking about death is scary, right? Mm-hmm. But many great thinkers, including the Stoics, even the samurai, they strongly believe that we live better lives when we stay aware of death, right? And science agrees too. Science Daily noted, thinking about death can actually be a good thing. An awareness of mortality can improve physical health and help us reprioritize our goals and values. And I think that, to me, is the most important thing, out of when I was reading this article, that death puts life into focus, right? And to put it another way, like, how much do you get done without a deadline, right? And this mortality, this finality of death, it gives us a deadline that I think makes us really enjoy life better. Like, if we didn't have death, we'd all be procrastinating, like, I'll just get that to, I'll get to that next century. It's cool. Carl Pillemer of Cornell University studied 1,200 people ages 70 to 100 plus. And the main lesson that the older folks wanted to convey to all of us youngsters was this.
They like peaches, they like cutting coupons, and they don't like to be farty.
So if you're lactose intolerant like I am, then you want to make sure to avoid the dairy. Ooh.
Oh, sorry, that wasn't it. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that was not it. That is, if you've watched our game streams, you know that we play Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and there was old man Jensen, and he clips coupons, he likes peaches, and he is lactose intolerant. That's what we've got for him.
These stories that you can create on streams.
No, what the main lesson is that life is short. And we've heard this before. This is not new, right? Like, I hear this all the time. People say it. Life is short, but it's like a saying. It's like when people say, I love you, but they don't really think about what they're saying. They're just saying it. And it kind of, in a way, loses meaning after a while, and you don't realize what it is that you're saying. But if you actually think about it, that life is short, it might seem, when you're at work, when you're in an unpleasant situation, it might seem like, life is really long and this minute is dragging on forever. But if you think of in the span of the universe, in the span of just life on the planet Earth, it's pretty damn short.
Hell yeah. Well, trees and turtles outlast us, folks. Just keep that in mind.
Turtles, which I know that one Drew is happy about.
Yeah.
In our chat. And Carl Pilmer goes on to say, that they want to pound this awareness into young people, not to depress them, but to encourage them to make better choices. The one thing that makes people different at 70 and beyond from younger people, at least developmentally, is a sense of the limited time horizon. You become really aware that your days are numbered, and rather than that being so depressing, the people start to make better choices. It's sort of like carpe diem, bitches. In a way, right? Like, seize the day, do what you want to do, don't hurt others if you can, and live your life, because life is short.
Yeah, it's a great way of looking in the sense of, like, don't restrict yourself, for example. If you're like, I'll just do it tomorrow, or, should I go out and do this event? Nah, I'm just going to stay home. Unless you truly want to stay home, don't talk yourself out of certain things. Again, unless it's like, oh, let me jump out of a plane without a parachute. Nah, hold on a second. But overall, though, take on those experiences, or if you want to do something or start doing something, like some people, they take my classes. I teach theater and acting and film and what have you at times. And some people take my classes going, this was actually my first class ever. I finally decided to bite the bullet and just dive in and jump in and see what I can do with myself. What am I capable of in this realm? And I always encourage that. I'm like, do it, because as an actor, you're constantly trying to take risks, right? Whether it's in front of the camera or on the stage, you're putting yourself out there, and it's your goal to try to create this character. And so therefore, you must take risks, and a lot of times go outside of your comfort zone in order to reach that characterization. And the same thing is for the characterization of yourself, of who you are. You've got to take risks and actually be willing to engage in those in order to really find out who you are and what you're capable of.
Exactly. And Kiki Slider in chat says, cool, I'll start yelling, you're all gonna die in public more often.
So, quick story. I might have said this on stream already, but like rewind, like, I don't know, 20 years ago or so now, which is weird to think that it was 20 years ago. But my sister, I have two younger sisters, and the eldest of those two sisters was probably like 3 years old at the time. And, she had been told that smoking's not good for you and everything else. And so she's in the car with my dad. My dad's driving somewhere, and she's in the back seat, of course, all buckled up and whatnot. And she goes, "Daddy, roll down the window." My dad goes, okay, sure. So he rolls down the window, and all of a sudden she yells out the window, "You're gonna die!" Now at this point, my dad is freaking out. You know, you got the sweat going down the brow. You're like, what the fuck's going on? So he looks out to where she's looking, and there's a woman with her windows down next to them in the next lane over, smoking. And so she knew it was bad, so she was just trying to warn the woman, hey, you're gonna die if you keep doing that. But it's so true, though, in general, though, and just general acceptance. Like, you know, it happens, right? You know, but the thing is then what do you do with your life? What do you do from there? So for this woman, she probably quit smoking, because that's a scary-ass moment to have, like, a 3-year-old shouting at you, you're gonna die! She's like, fuck it, I'm done. Tobacco, liquor's out the window. What else am I doing? I don't know. Let's throw the fuck, you know.
That's one kind of Grim Reaper.
Exactly, just a small child.
Very non-threatening.
Hello. It's like a really bad B horror film. Babies in cars. They're back and they're pissed. You're gonna die, the sequel. Yeah.
It gives a whole new meaning to warning, baby on board.
Yeah, she will warn and scare the shit out of you. Warning, warning.
She will truth bomb the fuck out of you.
Well, that's the great thing about kids, right? They don't have that filter.
True.
That we tend to build into ourselves, or that kind of the group think of society tends to build into us, of that, oh, well, you don't say certain things, or, you know, you shouldn't think that way, or, well, you should be more positive. And it's like, by looking at the honest truth, it doesn't mean you're not being positive.
Right.
You're being realistic based on the facts, right? That's like, for instance, an individual losing their arm and saying, it's okay, it'll grow back. How would your response be? You're going to be like, unless there's something in science I haven't heard about yet, where they're taking, like, the cells of a starfish and inserting it into your arm and somehow it grows back. I don't think that's going to happen, right? Well, it's the same in many of these instances, too. We can't be so naive and avoid the actual facts. Now, can you elongate life? Sure. Is there something that could come along down the line that can help improve your life? Sure, absolutely. It has happened thus far. Though as much as we implement to improve, we take a lot of steps back, though, because of what's left over from those things that we create, right? Look at all the trash, look at all the pollution, so on and so forth. But yeah, it doesn't mean that you're being negative, though. And that's really important. And for many people, they can't handle that. And I understand, especially when it's much weightier, sometimes it's hard to take all at once, right? Mm-hmm. But it's important for you to start understanding that and start taking your head out of the sand. Just because you bury it doesn't mean that it's not going to be there. We tell this to children, but we have a really hard time telling it to ourselves. And we need to start practicing what we preach to so many other people.
Oh, you mean you want to live an honest, non-hypocritical life? Where your actions and words and beliefs all match?
You know, you try, right?
What?
You try.
I feel like that isn't. I feel like that should be the definition of happiness.
That's right. As Kiki says too, she probably smoked another cigarette, meaning the woman in the car my sister was yelling at, because she was so stressed out from it. Which, that's true too. Out of the mouth of babes. Hey, your sister was being positive. She was positive that lady was gonna die. It's true.
And hey, Trunk Vargala, welcome, welcome. Out of the mouths of babes. That's right. That's right. Well, so knowing that you're gonna eventually die, right, obviously puts things into perspective. But maybe you're having a hard time truly living in the moment, then trying to figure out what are the good choices that I want to make, or different choices that I might want to make, and so on and so forth. Happiness researcher Sonia Lyubomirsky.
Say that while you're drunk.
Sorry if I butchered your name, Sonia. She thinks that the solution might be to, quote, live a month like it's your last, unquote. And not terminal cancer last, but rather imagine that you're going to move away from your job, your friends, your family, your life as you know it in a month. Because when you have kind of an end in sight, right, that deadline we were talking about, we actually tend to appreciate things more. She says, previous research hints that this exercise should prompt us to appreciate in a profound way what we are preparing to give up. When we believe that we are seeing or hearing or doing or experiencing things for the last time, we will actually see, hear, do, or experience them as though it's the first time. So that is an interesting concept. You know, believe that it's, you know, in a month, you're going to say goodbye to everything here. Okay. What becomes important? What do you want to see or hear or do or experience? I think that's really interesting. I actually did this little exercise myself, at least for the few days after I read this article. And it was like everything that's pretty much important to me is already here. I'm doing the choices that I want to be doing. I have a clearer idea of what I want to be changing and where I want to get to, what my goals truly are. It was incredible. It was really eye-opening for me in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I really like the fact that she's being realistic in the sense of, again, like, for example, if you're going to be moving at the end of the month, you're moving away from everything into something new, right? No matter what that may be, into the unknown, which, again, as we're talking about the fact of death, that is unknown, right? And there's no way of properly preparing for it. And I think that's what freaks us out, right? Because naturally, due to natural selection and survival instincts and everything like that, we have to prepare, right? Okay, so I'm gonna need food, let me bring mattress, you know, whatever it may be, right? But we don't know, and that's the point, though, is to say, you know, you're going on to something new, and so therefore, what do you want to create, what do you want to experience, and what do you want to leave behind? And in many respects, too, of course, people are gonna go who either don't believe in this, think it's ridiculous, want to argue with it. They're going to go with something big like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be a professionally trained magician. I'm going to make $1 million in a month. And again, we're talking about realism here.
I mean, that sounds fun.
I mean, if you want to, by all means, try. But, like, you know, it's about being realistic here, though. You know, with the time that you have, like, again, you can have long-term goals, of course, but we're talking more like immediate or like mid-term or like mid-length goals, if you will. Where it's like, what are some things that are achievable that I've just wanted to do? Or what are some things that I've just wanted to change about myself and that feel right? Or maybe, you know, I speak a lot of these platitudes, but maybe I don't actually follow through with them like I should. What would it be like if I took a month to actually follow through with all these platitudes that I say I believe in, right? For instance, you know, not going to lie, cheat, steal, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to support this. For example, like, you know, oh, I really believe in this one cause. Maybe I should donate money or donate some time or learn more about it and see if it's really the cause that I think it is, right? You know, these moments, these actions, these things that we can implement right now, that's what's really important. And again, this also kind of gets you in that sense of that mindfulness, which we hear a lot about,
yeah.
And some people conflate, don't really understand, or again, they use it as a platitude, like, well, you got to be here right now. Okay, but what does that mean to you, though? Being here, right now in the present, what does that really mean to you? Because many people talk about it, and they use it as kind of a catchphrase, but they don't really understand what it is and the whole philosophy behind it, and that's what's so important. So maybe that is something that you practice in the next month, right? And you'd be amazed at how many things you can actually get done, how many things you can achieve, and hell, if you're still hanging out and you're alive and kicking by the end of that month, great. Just think about what else you can do then in the next month, right? Because you also have to test yourself, and sometimes you have to give yourself a deadline, right? And this is actually a great exercise in how to do that. And once you start doing it, it becomes a habit. You start making it a habitual action, which means it becomes much more natural. You create the process that works best for you, and you're able to continue to implement it without much effort. Because in the beginning, we always make it this big deal. We have to think, oh man, we have to climb the mountaintops, and we have to do this or do that to achieve anything. No, let's simplify it, let's create the process, and now you can move forward successfully. So I really like how she coined that too, of just like, you know, by the end of the month, you're moving. What would you want to do? What would you want to experience where you're at right now? Some things you probably haven't done yet or haven't done in a long time, what have you.
It's like when you live in a famous city like, oh, I don't know, Boston, and people who travel there, they're like, oh, what sights have you seen? And, you know, take us to the best places. And I'm like, I don't really sightsee in Boston because I live there, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But then, you know, when we were planning to move, it was sort of like a, wow, should probably do some sightseeing now before I go, because it's going to be very expensive to come back and do the sightseeing. So, and you know, anything that sort of, what am I trying to say? I guess, you know, if in that month you realize that something that you've been doing or you've been experiencing is no longer the thing for you, you can then take smaller steps to change the direction of the course that you're on. You know, and so I also want to make sure that people don't feel like, oh crap, here I am, I'm 35 years old, and I've been going in this direction in my life, and in this 1 month I realized, crap, I want to go over this way. Okay. Slowly, just like you did the entire month, think about certain things. Slowly start to think about how you can change the direction of your ship to point in the direction that you want to go in, you know, and realize that you didn't get to where you are overnight. So it may not be overnight that you get to where you want to go either.
Yes, exactly.
Baby steps are okay. Like, you know, thinking about that mountaintop when you don't exercise is like, holy crap, right? But just think about, I just want to get to the next 10 feet of elevation. Okay, great. You go up that way, and so on and so forth before you reach the actual top of the mountaintop.
Yeah, for instance, you know, going off like the fitness trend, for example, instead of going, okay, well, I want to lose, you know, 15 pounds and I've got to get a 6-pack of abs and all this other stuff, which is much more long-term. Look at the fact of, okay, how many times I'm going to the gym. For many people, it's 0, right? It's 0 times that I am working out. So maybe change that to once a week. Maybe change that to 3 times a week. So, no, you don't have the 6-pack of abs yet, but you're going in the right process. And it's hard enough trying to just get a schedule down where you're constantly taking time for yourself to work out or to read that book you've been working on for the past 2 years. That's my story right there. Or so many more, right? It's like, all right, I'm going to take the time. I'm going to start doing goals that make sense for me right now. Like, just start frickin' reading the book. You know, read 10 pages, you know, every couple of days, or read, you know, 50 pages for a week, and that's my week deadline, or whatever it may be, you know. Do those smaller steps, because once you start realizing it's easier because you've built up a system, and then you can start getting to the more long-term goals of, okay, now I'm going to finish this book and get through another one, or now I'm going to work on that 6-pack of abs because I've built up the strength, the stability, the mobility, and everything else that I've needed in order to make sure I can then get those muscles.
GL Gamer says, 35 years old, going in this direction. Oh crap, too relatable, Tatiana. I mean, I'm not speaking from experience.
And Kiki says, okay, I'll just stop eating pizza and crying all the time. By the way, nothing wrong with pizza per se. Or crying. Crying
actually gets rid of your toxins and stuff in your eyes.
And it's cathartic. It actually makes you feel better. Yeah. It's a relief, so by all means.
And then if you do have a cat, she's all like, let me wash your face. So I was like, all right, bonus, you know. All right, harsh truth number 2 is actually a nice segue into what we've been talking about. From what we've been talking about. Anything worthwhile will take more work than you think. So, like, you've heard the phrase, you know, it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. But that's actually incorrect. It's worse. It takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice at something to become an expert. Yep. You know, just because you spend 10,000 hours driving doesn't mean you're ready for NASCAR. Deliberate practice means that you have to spend 10,000 hours, you know, focusing on improving your weaknesses, pushing yourself to the limit. It's all much harder than it actually sounds. And this is true for anything that you want to do, whether it is a career-based thing or a task but also things like relationships, marriages, friendships, family ships, raising kids, you know, anything. If you want to become an expert at it, it's going to take a long time. Even if you don't want to become an expert at something, it's still going to take a much longer time for you to get good at it.
That's G-I-T-G-U-D, in case you were wondering. That's the dictionary way of spelling that.
To get good. So if you want to get good at Fortnite, or insert game of choice here, it's going to take time, right? You got to get out of the noob phase in whatever it is that you do in your own life. So does this mean that you have to be a workaholic? Yes and no, right? Yes and no. Again, depending on what you want to do. There was an 8-decade research project called the Terman Study.
Wait, 8 decades?
80 years.
Damn.
80 years. It followed about 1,500 people from childhood to death.
Including the people that were originally running the research?
Yeah, that was, passed down through the generations.
My children shall take up the mantle of this research and finalize it for us.
And then the kids were like, but do you have coupons for peaches, sir?
Dad keeps asking for coupons. I don't understand why. It drives me crazy. I'm trying to do my research that he started. He put me in this mess.
So they followed these people from childhood to death, and they actually found, and this may sound crazy, because it did to me. They found that people who worked harder lived longer. What? And apparently that, sort of being laid back, not accomplishing much, actually led to a shorter life. And again, we're talking about lifespan here, of course, but it does turn out that, quote, taking it easy, unquote, is actually not so great for a longer lifespan. So, I mean, if you want to live a long time, you got to put in the work. See what I did there?
Well, I think, too, that it's very much about what you're doing as well, right? And how you feel about it. What is the work situation or the hobby that you're doing? And are you doing the hobbies that you want to do? Are you doing the things that make you happy? Because as many people say, which I think to a point is complete bullshit, but there is an element to it that is truthful, which is, if you do something you'll love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, it definitely will feel like work. Mm-hmm. But in a way, though, it doesn't impact your mind, your brain chemistry, and you physically as doing something that you absolutely loathe and hate, or doing absolutely nothing at all and just being a complete, I want to say, like, in a way, like a vegetable, like, whatever, just kind of laying on the ground doing nothing. You're doing something that inspires you, you're doing something that makes you happy. Again, you have so many different things firing off in the brain to make you feel good, which then impacts other elements and other systems within the body, that it makes sense that by doing more of what gets you going, what gets you energized and revved up, will keep you going.
And me and movie analogies, so
here we go.
I got two for y'all.
So in this one film
and so there is,
or a TV show.
Spoiler alerts. I do, yeah, that's true. This is two films. And spoiler alert, this is for Gone with the Wind and Serenity. So if you guys haven't seen those movies and you want to watch them, just pause this for the next 2 minutes, or skip it, I should say.
Yeah, don't pause it, because when you hit play, you'll still hear it.
Yeah, so I'll try to say it quick. But in Gone with the Wind, right, Scarlett basically loses the plantation. She loses her home. She loses her dude. She loses everything. Her parents, all that, right? But she has the will to fight another day, right? And that's how the film ends, is she's like, whatever, I will think about this tomorrow. And that will to fight and to go on got her through all the other crap, right? Mm-hmm. She started off like this, la 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 la, and she's all like, fuck it, I'm gonna fight for this. I'm gonna fight for what I want. And then in Serenity, right, at some point in the film, we find out that certain people were given a drug to help them be happy. What that made them become is complacent And they were so happy, they literally stopped what they were doing, went to sleep, and died. Because they weren't doing anything. Like, not even eating. So, exactly. What GL Gamer says in chat, we weren't meant to be uncreative, unproductive blobs. Right? We're supposed to be doing something at some points. But at the same time, we're not meant to be zombie worker drones either, right? There's that sort of like nice fine line in the middle where you're not a complete blob, but you're not like all you're doing is working, because then what's the point of living?
Right. Well, and again, we started off, I mean, we're many hundreds of years ago, we started off as hunter-gatherers, as going out, and as, you know, the only way to travel wasn't via car or horse. It was walking, running, doing what you could to get across and to make things. Everything was physical, right? So that is just built innately into us, is to do things physically and to be moving. Moving is progress because it is survival. And just because some of the, I guess, what do I want to say, like predators or other obstacles that we faced back then aren't quite as relevant now, doesn't mean that the easy life, the tools that we make or create to make things easier is actually good. You know, just because they make a comfortable chair that you can sit in for 6 hours doesn't mean you should actually sit in it for 6 hours. Again, the business doesn't give a shit. They're just like, well, we're making money, people will buy it, and people will use it, whatever. It doesn't mean that it's good for you now, but they can say, well, it was your choice, right? You decided to sit in that chair for 6 hours and thus get poor circulation in your legs and thus get a blood clot or whatever else that can happen. You know, that was your decision. We just provided the tool. It's you who are using it, right? And so you can't just automatically assume, well, they sell it, they put it out there. You know, I'm being told this information, so it must be true and it must be, you know, all on the up and up and healthy and good for me. No. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such things as Ho-Hos, Twinkies, or McDonald's French fries.
Oh,
just throwing it out there.
fries.
Hey, anything that can sit on the floor of your car and after 5 years still look the same,
Oh, God.
there's something not right with that. I'm just saying. I'm not saying they don't taste good when they're fresh, but something to worry about.
So you've had McDonald's French fries in your car for 5 years? Is that what I'm
I've seen people clean out their car and seen
That's
it.
what I'm hearing.
And I was like, oh, did you drop down underneath the car like recently? No, this is I stopped eating McDonald's like years ago. Oh, well, all right then.
Those people are liars. McDonald's is everywhere. You can't stop eating it.
Oh, you can.
Once you start, no. I'm just kidding. Yeah, and as you mentioned, Evan, before too, you know, it's the work that you're doing has to be meaningful, right? Like if you're passionate and engaged in that 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, and accept the challenges that come with working hard. And again, this is for a job. This is for your relationships. Like it's for anything in your life that you're working at. You're going to have a richer life. You're going to have a higher psychological adjustment, like your life satisfaction, meaning of life, your vitality. And you're going to have lower levels of anxiety and depression. And that's not to say that, you know, struggle leads to a happy life in the short term, right? Because you're working hard at whatever you're working at. And it could be multiple things at once. But it does lead to a meaningful life in the long term, which some people might say that's what also leads to happiness, or it is happiness. So if you're a workaholic, congratulations! You got this beat, y'all!
Hey, high five!
Yeah, woo! Workaholics unite. But what if you haven't, like, let's talk about work for a little bit, right? Like, or your passion or calling in life. Like, what if you haven't found it, right? What if you haven't found your passion or found your calling, or you're still waiting for that like spark of passion to hit, right? Like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I like playing video games. That's all I know. Okay. You're like, what's the fucking big secret? How do other people get there, right? Well, it turns out that loving what you do actually has little to do with some ingrained spark or passion, and actually more to do with commitment to do the best. Because you're going to spend a lot of time and effort on something in life, right? Sometimes it's a lot of different somethings.
Mm.
And you can resent it, right? You can hate your job. be like, I fucking hate this job, but I'm here for money. Okay. So you can resent it and half-ass it and just get by and feel like a zombie worker drone. Or you can commit to it, you can build it, you can jump in with both feet, and you can actually reap great rewards from it. You can actually be the best at your crappy little job, get a promotion, and move on up. Or you can be the best at finding yourself another job and doing something, making that change, right? Professor Cal Newport, PhD, actually says that you don't actually find anything, quote unquote, find. You have to build it. You have to create that. He says, if you study people who end up loving what they do, here's what you find. Long-term career satisfaction, specifically, requires traits like a real sense of autonomy. So being in control of what you do, feeling like you are trusted in what you do and you have the ability to do what you want. A real sense of impact on the world, right? The work that you're doing has a maybe visible or tangible impact on the world around you or the world in a broader sense. A sense of mastery that you're good at what you do. Okay, so maybe you hate your job, but you're really good at this one thing about it, right? You've become mastered at it. And a sense of connection in relation to other people, whether they are your peers or other people that you work with, other colleagues. Now, the key point is that those traits are not matched to a specific piece of work, right? Like you can feel autonomy, a sense of impact on the world, a sense of mastery and a connection to other people, no matter what you do, right? The actual do doesn't matter. You can have those traits anywhere. So they're not matched to a specific piece of work and have nothing to do with matching like your job to some ingrained, you know, pre-existing passion. You can be passionate about anything. I mean, there's, you know, people are always, I hear people a lot who are, you know, I wish I could sing. Okay. You could have an amazing voice. You might still not have the commitment to build your life around that and to put in the work for it. And there are some people who are okay singers, but they put in the work. They commit to it. And they have the success that they're going for.
And I hear that many times too, especially in the arts, where people are like, oh, but I'm far better than this person. Okay, but how much have you committed to the craft? You know, are you just waiting for an opportunity, or are you going out there and creating opportunities, for example? Are you, you know, putting out your work in different areas, trying to put in cafes? Are you letting people know on social media? You know, what are ways that you're letting people know that you even exist and that you're doing what you're doing? And are you trying to make thoughtful connections in the industry that you're trying to go in, for example? You know, there's so many other elements. So it's like, yeah, you might be a better artist than XYZ person, but they're evidently diving into all elements that they need in order to be successful. Because in the end, you're your own self-entrepreneur. Even if you work for someone else, right? You are trying to build up who you are as a personal brand. So whatever that is, no one can do that for you. That's all on you. So how much are you willing to move forward with that? How much are you willing to commit to go forward in that? And actually, I want to bring up a real quick thing too, because I feel like it fits well with this specific truth. And that is, I'm actually reading a book right now, and I do recommend it. Thus far from what I've read, I really enjoy it. And it's actually called Unfuck Yourself, which is a very direct and to the point title. And it is by Gary John Bishop, and it talks about getting out of your head and into your life. And one thing he says is willingness. It's the lifeblood of the new, the infinite well of possibility and potential, a state where new futures arise and a whole new you can begin. Ask yourself, am I willing, over and over until you hear it, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, while you're driving, while you're in the shower. Am I willing? Ask, ask, ask until a resounding yes echoes through your consciousness. I am willing. But also, the key is to know that it's okay to say I am not willing, because that means that gives you more time, that saves your energy and resources for the things you are willing to do. So it's not to say that saying I am not willing to do something is not strong in comparison to I am willing. It's just as strong as saying I am willing to do this. So many people say, oh yeah, I want to eventually do this. I want to eventually do this. I do it all the time. But the question is, am I willing to? Am I willing to put in the time? Am I willing to put in the energy? And for some of these things, I go, actually, you know what? I'm not. So maybe I don't really want to do it after all. It just sounds right or feels like I should, but it doesn't mean that that is something that I really want to do. And therefore, that great. Now I know, don't invest the time into it. Don't invest the stress into it, beating myself up, going, yeah, I keep telling myself and I just never do it. Well, it's because I don't want to do it. So that's okay. I'm not willing to do this, but it's all right because that gives me time to do something I am willing to do.
And that's an interesting point if you think about it, in the sense of being truthful with yourself in that way means you're not disappointing yourself, right? Because if you're always saying, oh yeah, I want to do this, every time you don't do that, right, you feel bad.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
You had set up this goal for yourself, but not necessarily the steps to it or the willingness for it. So you're gonna fail all the time. And it's hard to like walk around your life being excited for it when you're constantly like, well, I failed at this.
Well, in a way, too, it's funny because he has a chapter right after this section here I just read that talks about failing and winning. And he mentions that, you know, let's say, for instance, in your head, you've built up this story that I can't have relationships. You know, I'm terrible at relationships and, you know, I always fall in love and then it goes bad and then I, you know, I'm lonely again and everything else. At that point, because you keep telling yourself this is the way things are, you're actually winning when a relationship does go bad. And what he means by that is because you're setting yourself up for that goal. So you're achieving that goal just fine. It just might not be the goal you're looking for, right? And it sounds silly, but it actually makes a hell of a lot of sense. If you say, I can't do this, or this never works out for me, and this never works out for me, and then it starts working out, but then it flounders, I wonder why. It's because you've set that up as the goal. So subconsciously, your brain sees the little flaws. You know, it goes, you know, does this person really want to talk to me? Oh, they're not available to call me right now. Or maybe they're out with someone else. You know, you start getting all this paranoia and all these other things that build up that aren't actually there because you've set that goal. And so your mind is going, okay, well, this is reality then. This is what I'm working toward. And that's not to say that you should create false goals as well, or extreme goals, saying, well, that means that every single relationship I'm in is going to be perfect and it's going to be great, it's going to be this and that. But just the realization that, you know, what you set in your head is what you're kind of working toward, whether you intentionally mean to or not. So whether it's conscious or subconscious, it still will eventually come to fruition. So technically you're winning. Hey. Hashtag winning. But it's not in the goal that you want. So make sure that, again, you word your goals in a way and your reality in a way that actually is fair and makes sense. Where it's like, yes, there's a potential of this going well and there's potential of it not going well, but let's enjoy the moment and see where it goes, rather than just saying, nope, this is the end. This is the end right here. This is where it's going to end up going. You don't know. No one knows. And that's the thing. And there are different ways of achieving these goals, whether it's goals we actually want or not, right? So we can't just say, nope, this is the goal and this is what's going to happen like every other time. No. That's not what you want to do, what you want to set yourself up for.
And we've heard other phrases too, like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because, if you're like, I'm going to fail at this, you're going to pick partners that unconsciously or consciously you know are bad for you. You're going to do certain actions that unconsciously or consciously you know are going to be bad for you. And you're going to get to this goal that you don't want and then say, yep, see, I was right. Well, you kind of put yourself on that path.
Exactly.
So,
and that actually goes into harsh truth number 3 perfectly.
Perfectly. Harsh truth number 3 is you will never be perfectly happy.
What?
I know. And as someone who loves laughter and happiness, this is harsh. But it's true, right? Like we're always focused on that, like some sort of magic end goal that's going to make us perfectly happy, right? Well, if I make this kind of money, I'll be perfectly happy forever.
Ooh.
Oh, if I just meet my soulmate, they're going to fix everything that's wrong with me and we'll be perfectly happy together.
If I got a coupon for a can of peaches, I would be perfectly happy.
That might actually work.
Bam.
That one, Adam Jensen, old man Jensen's got it. I got it. But it's like a if I just, right? When I attain that goal, I will be happy. And no. Why? There's always going to be discomfort and worries because our brains are actually not wired for this perpetual happiness. In fact, it's wired against it. Science author Robert Wright notes that natural selection doesn't, quote, want, unquote, us to be happy. After all, it just wants us to be productive in a very narrow sense of productive. And the way to make us productive is to make the anticipation of pleasure very strong, but the pleasure itself not very long lasting. Now, TV shows do this really well, especially reality TV shows, right? Or news shows, where they're like, throughout the entire season or the entire episode, they're like, oh, just wait till you hear what happened with these two people. Oh my God, right? The anticipation of pleasure takes 45 minutes, and then they show you what happened with these two people, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Wasn't that big of a deal. It took like 20 seconds to show, right?
Yeah.
And it's true, right? I mean, how many times have you actually achieved a goal you did want, and then almost immediately or shortly thereafter, you were like, okay, no, like, now what?
Yeah, what's next? What's next? Okay, I did that.
Yeah.
Cool. Give me something else.
Yeah.
Which is how I feel like every 5 seconds. I'm like, cool, I did something else, right? What else? Wow, let's do it.
I know, it's like, just enjoy your life.
And see, and that's the thing too, is people have different energy levels. So, you know, some people are constantly on the move and constantly wanting to do something. And that's okay too, right? Because that's just a part of them and that's what they can do. Other people are a bit more relaxed in a way, right? And they don't have the same energy levels, and therefore, you know, they can do less, but that's okay too, right? It's not one is better than the other, because we have to remember that we're all wired very differently. And so based on how we're wired and, you know, our brain chemistry and everything else, how our bodies are functioning, the different systems, it could be vastly different, but that's okay, because you're just working with what you got, right? Not everyone has the same or equal tool set, but it's how then you use it. And that's the biggest thing to remember. And actually, I love what Drew the Ogre said. I think this is a great way of putting it too, which is also human perception is a difference engine. We don't have a concrete internal reference for anything. All measurements are relative. And that's absolutely true.
Exactly. And what this means, right, is that...
Or relatively true. So.
Oh! Gotta get a clicker on that.
She's so happy I put those sound effects on the talk show stream deck now. She's so happy.
I am. I am. But that's true, right? And, you know, we can sometimes only tell how we're doing in comparison to something else, which is why social media is the worst thing on the planet and also the best thing on the planet.
Yeah, well, in social media, marketing in general is meant to feed on that what next. I need something else. I need something else, right? And so they keep pushing you so that way you keep buying. It's like, oh, well, here's something else. Here's something else. Video games, actually, we're talking about this in chat here right now. That's the way they get you, right? A lot of times they don't put out all the content. They break it up into DLCs and stuff, so you spend more money over time. So that way they're getting a more consistent revenue stream into their company to then utilize for whatever the hell they decide to utilize it for. But, you know, it's to keep you excited, right? And it's basically, a lot of people call it like hype, or the hype machine, right? You get so caught up in the hype and what happens and everything that you're just like, here, just give me it now. Take my money now. Here you go. And people are willing to get, because they want that high. They want to feel happy and excited. And sometimes having a certain weight on a game too, or a DLC, gets people continually talking about it and excited, right? Which then brings in more people, because you get a stronger word of mouth, and then something can, in a way, go viral. And that's what a lot of people, marketing-wise, business-wise, actually really hope for, is to feed off that, I need something again. I need something more. I need something bigger and bigger. News outlets do this all the time as well, right? They try to make something seem even bigger and larger so that way you'll stay to watch the segment, where you find out it's not in any way, shape, or form the same sort of emphasis or heaviness that they had put onto it originally. Because they know that they've got you. Like, okay, well, this thing happened, but more at 11. You know, so you're like, oh, well, I need to know more. What happened? What's going on? And they want to feel on what's the next thing. Like, oh, man, you've already perked my interest. You know, perk me more, baby. Perk me more. And, yeah, it's
a drug.
It is.
And that's what drugs do to us, and that's why drugs are so effective on our brain chemistry.
Well, and we're all addicts. I don't give a shit what you say. You don't have to do methamphetamines. You don't have to do cocaine. You don't have to do heroin. You don't have to do alcohol in order to be an addict. Everyone is addicted to something because it helps them get themselves out of their mind, or to slow things down, or whatever it may be. We're all addicts, whether it's addiction to social media, whether it's addiction to our phones in general, to video games as well, or to, you know, other elements in our life, because it gives us that initial high, makes us forget about everything else. And so we keep craving more and more and more and more. And all of a sudden you've spent like 13 hours playing World of Warcraft or EverQuest, or which that was me back in the day, by the way.
Or Civilization 5.
Or Civilization 5, and you're just like, well, I just woke up, but now it's time to go back to bed.
Before the show was going up, right, what was I doing? I was exploring with my settler where new places to go in Civilization 5. Like, I'm addicted to that game.
It's a true story based on true events.
And you're right. I discover a new continent. I get really excited. And then I'm like, okay, are there more?
Yeah, it's that initial, it's not a bad thing. We're not saying that's a bad thing, because it keeps you going, right? That's the drive that we're talking about in Harsh Truth number 2, for example, is the fact of, like, you know, you need those initial highs in order to keep going, to keep doing something, because you're getting that positive reinforcement, right? This is why, for instance, having sex doesn't feel like you're putting your genitalia into a blender. Just saying. I'm throwing that out there, right? There's a reason why it doesn't feel like that.
I mean, unless someone's into that, in which case, I mean,
that's on you.
That's on you. So
how do you transition from what I just said? That's the key question.
First I want to talk about, okay, so we're not going to be perpetually happy. Apparently, we're going to live these short, workaholic lives that are actually going to be long lifespan, but short, relatively speaking. And we're not even going to become blissfully ecstatic at the end of them. That kind of sucks, right? That kind of blows. Well, here's the thing, right? The GRAND study, which was another one of those studies that followed people through their entire lives for decades and decades, saw that subjects who were most successful and happy didn't get that way because they were, quote, happy every single day, butterflies and rainbows.
Don't forget the unicorns.
They were actually at the top of the heap there, the happiness heap, because of their coping skills, their ability to deal with the inevitable problems that life throws at them. And I quote from the subject, from the study, "The men who exhibited mature defenses were happier, more satisfied with their careers and marriages, and were far better equipped to work and love than their peers who possessed less mature adaptations." And they're talking about the mature defenses and adaptations as these coping skills, this ability to deal with the crap that you're inevitably going to be drowning in because life, hi, how are you? So expecting or insisting that life has to be this non-stop happiness, that, you know, eventually you'll just reach this ecstatic bliss, is actually the surest way to stay unhappy, because then you're actually always working towards this, like, goal that you may never achieve. And what you have to do instead is work towards the good moments, accept that there's going to be bad moments, and then go make more good moments. But don't expect that you are going to be perpetually happy, and that once you find that perfect job, that you'll never work a day in your life. Or when you find the soulmate who will fix all of your broken cracks, won't have some of their own. And, like, all of this stuff, right? Like, you have to accept that you live in the real world, and that when you do find the good stuff, celebrate it. Work more towards that, but expect that there's going to be some crappy stuff, like Harsh Truth number 4.
Which is, drum roll please.
Drum roll.
I'm not sure what instrument that was.
That's from my people back in Romania. We bring it to you today.
People will let you down.
Like when I fall and they catch me and then they're just like, oh, I'm sorry, I slipped.
Right. Well, you are very tall, so don't fall on little people because we cannot catch you very well.
That's true. I found that out on opening night of the play I was in, which we were talking about, which is why we didn't stream this past week.
I have that on... Actually, no, I don't have that on video. Someone has that on video.
I'm supposed to jump on someone but still have one foot down, and that foot slipped. And so they're much shorter than me. Luckily, they're actually pretty strong. But they held me for a little bit, and then we ended up falling forward, and I fell on my ass. But it looked like it was planned to a point with the play, so it worked out fine. But yeah.
It was good, yeah.
But he let me down in the good way, not in like this way that we're talking about. Just to clarify.
Right. We're talking about this harsh truth, the betrayal by those that we care for the most. Right? People breaking promises, friendships, relationships that go astray and blindside you, right? And we've all dealt with that, some variation thereof, some more than others. So obviously, you know, the proper response is to trust no one. Keep all humans at arm's length. Never get close to anyone.
Lock yourself in your basement, kids.
Yes.
Save yourself the harshness.
And that's wrong. Look, you're going to get screwed occasionally. Welcome to Earth. Hello, population. We're all flawed and stuff. But in the long run, we actually come out ahead when we trust more, not less, which is another thing that like feels counterintuitive to me to some degree. But there's a study titled "The Right Amount of Trust," and they found that people who trusted others more actually had higher incomes than those who self-reported that they overall did not trust people. Now, it's hard to say, you know, causation, correlation there. You know, I mean, if you make a lot of money, sure, you're going to be like, woo! Maybe. Maybe you've just never gotten totally screwed by your colleagues in the past. Maybe you've been lucky. Or maybe you have been, you said, fuck them, and you just kept on plowing through. Hard to tell, right? But that is what they found. Michael Norton also did a research at Harvard, and he noted that we're also happier when we spend money on others versus on ourselves. So there's definitely studies out there and research that, you know, at least says people, you know, sure, they're going to screw you over, but they actually also give you that happiness and that richer life that we all crave. Because are people perfect?
Oh, hell no.
Apparently 0.000000001 is.
Based on your reality. Let me put in that little note.
But overall, no. But do we expect them to be perfect? Sometimes. Sometimes we do. And it's like, are you perfect? I'm not perfect. I sometimes think that I am, but I'm not. And yes, people will disappoint us. You know, we have to accept it, not let that send us into a hermit's shell, because relationships, and not just the romantic kind, like all kinds, friendships, work relationships, family ships. I'm making that a word.
Streamer ships.
Relationships with your, I don't know. I'm gonna throw out pets out there because you can have maybe not like a relationship with your pet, but like, you know, you have a companionship. They're actually the best predictors of a happy life. And, well, without trust, you're not going to really have much of a ship with anybody. And we're not going to be happy. So how do you manage this, you know, hopefully occasional, maybe not frequent disappointment of people letting you down all the time? Leading relationship researcher John Gottman says that it all comes down to ratios. That's right, everybody. Math is useful after elementary school.
They told me never would be.
Yeah, it's true. Not only geometry lets you build shit, ratios are important. For instance...
Did you know that 5 out of 4 people are not good at ratios?
That's rough. That's rough.
Moment of silence for those that did not catch that.
But it could be maybe dyslexic people. 5 out of 4 dyslexic people aren't good at
You could do that joke too.
Yeah,
There's
the
something
joke.
about that as well, I guess.
All
there.
right, I'm gonna
There we go.
give that for both jokes. There it is. So what he says is, for instance, five positive interactions for every negative one is what leads to a happy marriage, is what he found. So you extrapolate that to all ships. Okay, so you have 5 positive interactions with a person, and maybe 1 negative one. And if that's the ratio you're at, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So like for every 5 times that my cat purrs in my ear and is wonderful, she gets 1 scratch on hand. And I consider that to be okay. So the short takeaway here is that people are going to cause you problems. That's the harsh truth. But they're also the biggest source of happiness. So 5-to-1 ratio, man.
That's right. Well, and when something doesn't work out, we put so much more weight onto it than the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other things that went well. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, we've got to review again what we've done and actually properly put the proper weight onto those elements, right?
Yep.
And because not everything is equivalent, right? You can have something that's horrible and a nice little kind thing that happens, and it makes you feel temporarily good, but in the long term, no, it doesn't really impact you, right? So there are certain weights even toward the negative, but it's important to make sure that you're placing those weights properly and not just going, well, I didn't get what I wanted this time around, or not what I expected. It didn't quite fit the framework or the suit that I created for it to go into, basically, and therefore I'm pissed. No. Look at it properly, because if you start looking at it properly, you can go, okay, no, actually, this is working out well. Some people, for instance, I'll go to acting. We were talking about being on theater, on stage. Some people get pissed off when they get a what's considered quote unquote small role. But the thing is that, but did you get something over someone else? Were there other people that auditioned for this role who wanted it and they couldn't get it, but you got it, which says something about your acting and how the director, casting director, what have you, felt you could fit and achieve this role? Yes. So right there, you could look at it and go, well, actually, someone believed in me. Someone believed in me enough to even put me in their show. That has a lot of weight to it, because that's really what we want. We want that acknowledgement that people do believe in us and in what we do, and that we're doing something right. And so that right there is actually a reassurance that, yeah, you are actually doing something right. You fit the role. You fit whatever they had, that framework in their minds. You achieved that. You brought something unique and in depth to your audition, and that impressed them enough to hire you, to bring you on to that production. But again, so don't look at the fact that, oh, well, it's a small role. I'm not on stage as much as the lead actor or anything. So what? The fact is you got that. You look at other things too. You have more time now to study the other actors or figure out why was this actor then chosen to be this character, and understand that and see how you can then incorporate what you've learned through your studies into yourself once again, so then you can utilize it in the future. So it actually has opened up far more opportunities than if you never got that small quote unquote role in the first place, and you just keep auditioning, feeling like you're not getting anywhere.
Right. And the person who's got the big role, hey, they have a shit ton of lines they gotta memorize in the next 5 weeks.
They got a lot of stress. They got potentially even far more stress than many other people on the cast. So you could look at it like that too, like, oh, actually, wow, yeah, this is a lot of hard work. I'm actually kind of glad, because, yeah, it's not, whatever, fine, having the attention or whatever, but in the end, though, it's like, but, how does it balance out with the rest of your life, for example? If you're working another job as well, and you're trying to balance that, and you're trying to balance maybe if you're streaming or doing something else as well, and you have all these things happening in the next 5 months, maybe it's okay that you got, for instance, a smaller role. It gives you more time to also hit on everything else that you've done, so you're not stretched thin, but you're still engaged with something you're passionate about. So that's just something else, just another kind of analogy to give you a sense of what we're talking about here through all of this.
Actually, a quick funny story. When I directed Stop Kiss many years ago, in that show, the lead actress is literally in every scene. every scene, and there's a lot of them, and she has like a lot of quick changes. It actually there's a time there's two timelines that sort of are running concurrently, so she's always like switching back and forth. And there was one smaller role that someone else got, and you know, she kind of had the same sort of commentary, you know, like, oh, it's kind of a small role. And as the show, you know, kind of progressed, you know, the woman that had the smaller role noticed how stressed out this lead actress was all the time. And she actually came up to me and did say, you know, I've had a lot of time to like think about my character, and I could create this whole backstory for her. Like, I've had so much fun just like hanging out with the cast backstage and like all this other stuff, right? And she actually said, that was the first time I had heard about her kind of being like, oh, I have a small role. But she said that she came into it kind of sad, but had gained all of this other stuff that she didn't realize would, you know, kind of be the benefits that she would reap from the production. And she just thanked me for casting her in the first place. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm glad that got resolved without me doing anything.
It's always nice when that happens.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, and you never know, you know, whatever opportunity you land in any part of your life, right? Like, you just never know where that's going to go and how that's going to shape and change your future, which is kind of cool. So we talked about some harsh truths, right? Hopefully, though, you're walking away with some roadmaps, with some interesting, different ways of looking at things. And you know, Maya Angelou put it best: "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style."
Hey.
You know, we hear a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder, and what we don't hear about often is post-traumatic growth, right? Yes, there's some people that experience pain that follows them for a very long time, but more often than not, what does not kill us does make us stronger. In a study, University of Pennsylvania happiness expert Martin Seligman, I love these titles that they have, right?
Oh, what are you? I'm an expert at happiness. Hello.
Well, we know what that means. That
Happy to meet you.
He spent 10,000 hours of deliberate practice.
Bam.
At happiness, so that he's an expert. But he found that individuals who'd experienced one awful event had more intense strengths and therefore higher well-being than individuals who had none, had experienced no awful events in their life. And individuals who had been through 2 awful events were stronger than individuals who only experienced 1, and so on and so forth. And again, awful event is relative, right? Like, whatever that might mean to you, whatever you may have gone through. But realize that does give you strengths that other people don't possess. And, you know, gets you through the harsh truths of life better equipped to handle them, because you know, avoidance perpetuates the pain, right? We can't fix what we don't face, but when we do address the issues, we can actually grow and live better lives. The more you know. I feel like I need like a reading rainbow.
Like a rainbow right shoots across the screen. But yeah, so hopefully with these 4 harsh truths, you can do a lot of that. You're facing the truth. You're moving forward with it, knowing these are things to work with and work toward, and that hopefully you can grow and live a better life, whatever that better means to you. There are different variables, like we said, as long as you're being as realistic as possible with what you set forth to do. And that is one of the biggest things. And so again, you know, it's not about getting the 6-pack of abs, but just starting to go to the gym in the first place, among many other things. And so hopefully with this, you can take away these tools and some of these quotes, and we'll also make sure that if you're listening to the podcast, that we'll have more information and so forth listed in the description below, as well as for YouTube. And again, if you've missed any part of this live stream, you can always catch us live, the live broadcast or recording. I guess not so live when it's recorded. But you can catch the recording of us streaming here also on Podbean, iTunes, and many other podcast aggregators. And we usually launch that. This one specifically will be on Monday. And then, of course, on Tuesday will be the launch of this video on our YouTube. Now, of course, if you missed out in the very beginning, too, we do have schedule changes. So if you're live with us on Twitch here, make sure to look at the info panel down below, where we'll have more information on that. But just so you know, specifically for the talk show, we'll be having 2 talk shows a week now. Same talk show, but just more to discuss. So we're going to be taking on Thursdays starting at 4 p.m. PDT. And then, of course, on Saturdays at 2 p.m. PDT. Again, we'll be taking on more topics, having more discussions with all of you, which means also 2 podcast episodes a week, 2 or more videos up a week on the YouTubes with more information from this live stream here. And again, if you haven't already, make sure to either hit follow, subscribe, like, whatever platform you're on. Make sure to do so, so that way you can be the first notified whenever more content goes live for you to engage and enjoy with. Also, if you love this content, the biggest thing you can do is to share it. Send it out to friends, family, people you feel would benefit from this information. Because not only are you helping them out because of the information provided, but also it helps grow our community, helps get more people engaged, and helps us really decide on what way we drive the conversations, what topics you want to talk about. It can really highlight and bring about some amazing conversations here in chat, where we have people from all over the world who come in and discuss their thoughts on politics, life, culture, society, technology, you name it. And we all get an amazing education, an amazing perspective on how other people view the world. And that's what we need more of, right? It's just to understand the perspectives, whether we agree or not. It's important to understand, why do people think the way they do? We can't just assume, oh, they're stupid, or they're this, or they're that. But where is their thought process coming from? Because there is a reason behind it. There is some sort of meaning behind where they're coming up with this information and the beliefs that they believe in, how they see the world. And that is one thing that we try to do here. So again, share it out with people, let people know about it, so that way they can join in on the conversation, and hopefully it's something that can impact their life as well.
And join us tomorrow, Sunday, 2 p.m. PDT, for the beginning of our new schedule, and we're gonna be playing some games as well. And you know, we still chat. We still chat when we play games.
Conversation, share bad jokes, share great stories, and much, much more. So again, with that, thank you so very much for joining us today, for listening in or watching. We greatly appreciate you, seriously. Because without all of you being here, we're just talking to a wall, and what's the point of that, right? Books are meant to be read, streams are meant to be watched, and podcasts are meant to be listened to. So we greatly appreciate you spending your time out of everything else you could be doing with us here today. So thank you very much, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Have an awesome weekend.
Bye.